Hi guys, in 3-4, we're going to be talking about dividing rational numbers. So when we're dividing, we actually want to change them into a multiplication problem. So we are going to multiply by the reciprocal. You guys probably heard this as keep, change, flip, but I want you guys to start using some more higher level vocabulary here. So I want to hear you say multiply by the reciprocal instead of keep, change, flip. But just like when you learn it that way, we're going to leave the 1/9 alone. Then instead of division, we're going to multiply. And then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 5/12 would be 12 over 5. And then just like when we were multiplying, I'm going to go ahead and simplify at the beginning. I see 9 is divisible by 3. 12 is divisible by 3. So then 1 times 4 gives us 4. 3 times 5 is 15. And as always, double check that we are in simplest form. 4/15 is simplest form. So there's our answer. Okay, next one. 3/7 divided by 8. In order to take our reciprocal of 8, we need to think about that as a rational number. So we would rewrite that as 8 over 1. We're going to leave the 3/7 alone, change division to multiplication, and then our reciprocal would be 1/8. I see no simplifying at the beginning this time. So 3 times 1 is 3. 7 and 8 give us 56. We double checked, 3 over 56 does not reduce, so that is our final answer. Okay, moving on to a -1. Now, just like before, I'm going to move this negative into my numerator. So 5/8, division becomes multiplication, reciprocal, 4, and I'm going to go ahead and keep the 3 negative. I see I can reduce a 4 and an 8. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 5 times 1 is 5. Over 2 times -3 is -6. So we could leave the negative here, or we can move the negative into our numerator, or we could just put the negative out front. All of them are correct. You would only need to give one, but just so you see it. As long as there's only one negative, we're good. Okay, next one. Changing our mixed numbers into improper fractions. So 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2 is 14. Please be careful. There is a negative here. However, when we multiply and add, we don't think about them being negative. We just add the negative at the end. So it's not 3 times -4 and then plus 2. It's just 3 times 4 plus 2 over 3 divided by, I need to change this before I can do my reciprocal. So 9 times 3 is 27 plus 1 gives us 28 over 9. Now we multiply by the reciprocal. So -14 over 3 times 9 over 28. I definitely want to reduce at the beginning here. I see 14 and 28, both divisible by 14, so this becomes -1. 28 becomes 2. Then 3 and 9, both divisible by 3, so 3 becomes 1, 9 becomes 3. -1 times 3 is -3, over 1 times 2 is 2. Rewrite that as a mixed number of -1 1/2 as our final answer. Again, we want the mixed numbers, not the improper fractions. Okay, so that's dividing rational numbers. Now I want to talk about dividing algebraic expressions. So, same first step. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So 5 over 3AB times ABC over 15. We're going to reduce our numbers just like we have been. So I see a 5 and a 15, both divisible by 5. So 1 and 3. Now, we want to check out our letters. Just like we can reduce our numbers if we have something in the numerator and denominator, we can reduce our letters. I see I have 1A here, 1A here. They reduce to 1. 1B and 1B reduce to 1. So So it's really like taking 1 times 1 times 1 times c for our numerator, which is just c, over 3 times 1 times 1 times 3, which would be 9 in our denominator. So c over 9. If we take a look at the second one, mn over 4 divided by m over 8. So keep mn over 4 times reciprocal of 8 over m. And if you don't want to reduce at the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and multiply on this one just so you see another example of that. It's been a little while. So mn times 8 gives us 8mn, number always comes first, over 4m. Okay, now we reduce. I see 8, I see 4, both divisible by 4. So that leaves me with 2. And that would be 1, but there's something else there for now. Now I see I have an m and an m. They divide out to 1, so they're gone. And then I'm left over with an n, which leaves me with 1 in the denominator. And we do not need that 1 in the denominator, so our final answer is 2n. So it took a couple extra steps on that one just so you could see each step individually. So reduce at the beginning, reduce at the end, totally up to you. All right, next one, 4ab over c divided by 3a over 2c. 4ab divided by c times 2c over 3a. This time my numbers aren't going to do anything. I see I have a c in my denominator, c in my numerator, a in my denominator, a in my numerator, so they're also gone. So 4 times b times 2, I'm going to multiply my 2 and my 4. So 8b over 3. Now I know this looks like an improper fraction, but since we don't know what the b is, we're going to leave it as is. So 8b over 3. All right, last one like this, 3xy over yz divided by 6y over 5. So 3xy over yz times 5 over 6y. Go ahead and take care of my numbers first. So 3 is divisible by 3 for 1, 6 is divisible by 3 for 2. And I see a y and I see a y. You could have taken that y or this y, since they're both in the denominator, it doesn't matter which one you go with. So I have 1x times 5, which gives me 5x, over z times y, or z times 2 times y, so 2yz. Now you could put 2zy, but I like to go alphabetical, so 5x divided by 2yz. Okay, let's look at a word problem. 4 pieces of wood, each 14 and 5/6 inches long, are required for building a frame. If all 4 pieces are cut from one board, how long should the board be to the nearest whole foot? Show our work. So if I'm cutting all 4 pieces from one board, then that means the board needs to be long enough for all 4 pieces, obviously. So I'm going to take the length of one board, 14 and 5/16 inches, times the amount of boards I want, so 14 and 5/6 times 4. Change this to improper fraction. So 6 times 14 plus 5 gives us 89. I know it's going to be hard to squeeze this all in, guys. So 89 over 6 times 4 over 1. I'm going to go ahead and reduce because I know my numbers are large. So 4 is divisible by 2 for 2. 6 is divisible by 2 for 3. So 89 times 2 gives us, just going to follow the arrows here, 178 over 3. Now I want to know how long should the board be, so I cannot leave it as an improper fraction. So 178 divided by 3 would be 59 and 1/3. Okay, so now actually, before I move on, I see how long should the board be to the nearest whole foot. So I need to change this to feet. We know that there are 12 inches in a foot. I'm currently in inches, so I would have to go back to this anyway, so I'm just going to erase that. I'm going to go back a step. So we want to take that and divide it by 12 over 1. So that takes us to 178 over 3 times 1 over 12. And I know that 178 and 12 are both divisible by 2. 178 divided by 2 is 89. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we have 89 over 18. And I want the nearest whole foot. So 89 divided by 18 gives us 4.94 repeating, but I need enough of the wood to make all the pieces, so we're going to round up to 5 feet. Okay, long problem, lots of steps, and not a lot of room, so hopefully you guys were able to squeeze all of that in there. Final answer is 5 feet. Okay, one last two-parter here. Charlie's making croissants. His recipe calls for 2 3/4 cups of butter. He has 12.5 cups of butter. Part A, explain a method for determining the number of batches of the croissant recipe Charlie can make. Then use your method to find the number of batches he can make. Okay, so explaining. My explanation is going to be short and sweet. We're going to divide 12.5 by 2 3/4 because he has 12.5 cups. Each batch takes 2 3/4 cups to make. So there's our explanation. We're going to divide. Now, let's actually do it. So 12.5 divided by 2 3/4. We go ahead and change this into improper fractions. So 2 and 12 and 1 gives us 25 over 2 divided by 12 and 3 is 15 over 4. And I'm going to do a quick arrow here. So 25 over 2 times our reciprocal. So times 4 over 15. I see lots of reducing I can do here. So 2 and 4 both divisible by 2. 25 and 15 both divisible by 5. 5 and 3. Then multiplying straight across. 5 and 2 gives us 10 over 3. Which would be 3 1/3. I can't make a third of a batch, so 3 batches. And last piece, if Charlie plans to make 5 batches of the croissant recipe, use what you know about operations with rational numbers to predict the amount of butter he needs, then justify. So 2 3/4 is approximately 3 cups. So 3 times 5 would give us 15 cups. We are estimating. So then justify, we're going to actually work it out. So we have 2 3/4 per batch. I want to make 5 batches. So 4 and 2 gives us 8 and 3 is 11. Times 5 over 1. Which gives us 55 over 4 if we multiply across. Reducing that down to 13 3/4 cups. So looking back over this, I see that I made a mistake in the problem before in part A. If you can find the mistake and show it to me tomorrow without shouting it out to the class, I will give you an Eagle ticket. So last up, a couple quick now you tries. I want you to find the quotient for each, one where we just have 2 fractions and one where we have some mixed numbers. make sure you write them in simplest form.